Cursed Smile by Baye McNeil. The following took place at Shogunai Junior High School back in my early days as a teacher in Yokohama. This is an excerpt from my critically acclaimed second book, Loco in Yokohama. Back then, I still went by the pseudonym I'd taken on as a blogger in Japan, Loco. So when you hear Loco, just think Baye. Part 1. She's just being Japanese. Official observations of my teaching had a tendency to be nerve-wracking, especially when the person doing the observing was a representative from the Yokohama Board of Education. But the woman tasked to do these performance reviews understood very well what foreigners had to go through, living in Japan and working at Japanese schools, as she was a foreigner herself, all appearances to the contrary. She wasn't Japanese, not even close. Actually, I really couldn't tell you what ethnicity she was. She spoke Japanese fluently, of course, and was equally as fluent in Japanese customs and mannerisms, so much so that the Japanese teachers and administrators, upon meeting her for the first time, seemed to respond initially as if she were an interloper wearing Japanese cultural camouflage that didn't quite disguise her foreignness. However, when combined with her ethnic ambiguity and the fact that she was there in the capacity of representing an entity whose authority they were not in the practice of questioning, it forced them to exercise their judgments a bit more judiciously than they normally would with your run-of-the-mill foreigner. This was an annual review, making this the third time she had come to watch me do my thing. And, as usual, I'd had a month's advance notice of her visit, so I wasn't especially tense. At least I wasn't until the beginning of the week of my review, a week during which I had planned to prepare a special lesson carefully with Yamada-sensei. Preparations that wouldn't happen because Yamada had suddenly taken ill, or so her mother said when she called the school on Yamada's behalf. As per her doctor's orders, Yamada spent Monday and Tuesday in bed, so I was left with no clue what we would be teaching. Unlike the other English teachers I'd worked with over the years, Yamada liked to make her own lessons. At least I believed this to be the case because she always had. I'd come to the school and there'd be a lesson on my desk that she had taken from a textbook, not our school's, or from some website. Or she'd pull me aside and ask me what I thought of a lesson she'd put together from scratch, not for any real input, mostly just to check her grammar or spelling. Well, Wednesday came around, and wouldn't you know it, Yamada returned to work just in time for my review. God bless her. I'd been worried about her on Monday, as teachers at this school didn't generally call in sick unless they were deathly ill. Teachers came to school hacking and gagging, limping and all but crawling all the time. And 2 days in a row, she must have been dotting her I's and crossing the T's on her final will and testament. By Tuesday afternoon, once I knew I was going to be heading into a class to be reviewed by the Board of Education, half-cocked, so to speak, thanks to her, my sympathy threshold had plummeted from, I hope she's all right, to, I bet that bitch is at the beach. However, I did manage to smile when I said good morning and asked after her health. I had a full schedule that day, so I didn't have time to meet with her except for a few minutes before homeroom and a few minutes after lunch. With no time to plan a proper lesson, I suggested we play a grammar game in which the kids break up into teams and construct sentences using sentence fragments found on slips of paper. The team that constructs the most sentences correctly wins. Yamada was cool with that. She probably would have been cool with a seance for sentence structure. Anything short of CPR counted as English instruction that day. She looked like she'd been dragged bodily to the office, like death warmed over, trying to hide her rigor mortis behind a courtesy mask and a whiff of expired cold meds. Well, it wasn't a traditional lesson, but the BOE lady didn't seem disappointed with it. If she was, she hit it well. Later, my observation went much better than expected, all things considered. She told me I'd clearly established a rapport with the students and handled them with care and professionalism. You could dish out a little more praise, though, she added. The kids really need it. That's true. They do respond well to praise, I responded. I took notes dutifully during feedback and asked questions to clarify her remarks. I read somewhere that that was the way to make a good impression. You have an incredible smile, Loco, she said, like she was offering praise with a heaping side order of disclaimer. A powerful smile, which is both a blessing and a curse. Can you clarify that statement, please? I asked diligently, pen poised like a lie detector. Diligence is kind of my thing. Well, she began, your smile is radiant. I mean, I meet and observe a lot of teachers all over the city, and I remember little things about each one. And the one thing I remember about you is that smile of yours. I actually looked forward to seeing it today. Thank you, I said, feeling a little embarrassed. Of course, I'd heard such things about my smile before, but rarely had I received such flattering remarks in a professional setting. I suddenly felt a red flag go up, right up my spine via my rectum. She was setting me up like a pro, she was, cushioning the fall with a little misdirecting sweet talk. Your smile lights up a room, she said, through a well-maintained set of pearly whites. But it also has the effect of turning that light off when it's absent. You know what I mean? Yeah, I guess, I replied nervously, still waiting for the other shoe to drop. I need to smile more, right? Yes. Even if it's fake, a fake smile is better than no smile, especially for you. My curse, I sighed. Exactly, she said, with a finality that almost made me think she was wrapping up. I was about to put my pen away when she Lieutenant Columbo'd me with a one other thing. Ah, here it comes. Uh-huh. A little earlier, we had a short meeting with Yamada-sensei. Poor thing, she said, and she was no longer smiling. Her pearly whites vanished behind pursed lips set in a grim grin. Lasers from her eyes scorched my eyelashes. She had some complaints. No, I shouldn't say complaints. She had some concerns. Concerns. Yes, just the one concern, actually. Concerning? I asked, but regretted it immediately. I was getting defensive. I heard it in my tone, and if I heard it, I knew she heard it too. Everything is fine, Loco. No need to get upset, the BOE lady said, suggesting, despite appearances, she was on my side and we were in this together. It was in her tone. We were sitting in the principal's office having this meeting. The principal was actually sitting at his desk a few feet from us, shuffling paper around, and I was pretty sure listening to every word we said. But being Japanese, even if he could speak a little English, which I doubted, there were certainly things he wouldn't be able to pick up on, like her tone. Her tone said, "This is how they do things, and believe me, brother, I know how you feel. I've been here way longer than you, and when you leave, I'll still be here. And I didn't get to this position by being nobody's fool. So listen to me, learn from me, and trust me. Don't you dare get uptight with her. It ain't worth it. And in the end, you will have only made things worse. She's just being Japanese. You understand?" Of course, I said, responding to her tone and to the things that would remain unsaid. That goes without saying. Good, she said. Well, she mentioned that she had been out of the office Monday and Tuesday this week, and so your lesson was kind of done on the fly. Yeah, but it's not an issue, she said, cutting off my defense a little sharply. I decided to just relax then. Whatever will be, will be. I really enjoyed the class, she added. Thanks. She also said that she is usually pretty busy, so she doesn't have time to meet with you as often as she'd like. Uh-huh, I said, because she'd paused. And she'd appreciate it greatly if you would take a greater role in lesson preparation because, with all of her responsibilities over the course of a day, she just doesn't have time to prepare lessons too. She doesn't? That's what she said. She's been preparing her own lessons since I met her. She would like you to prepare the lessons. I was about to ask the BOE lady, who happened to love my smile, why? Instead of taking it to the Board of Education, essentially my boss's boss's boss, and being that I've sat at my desk since I met her, happily preparing lessons for the other two Japanese English teachers, not to mention helping her tweak her own, why didn't she just tell me that she'd like me to prepare her lessons as well? But I knew better than to ask that rhetorical question. The BOE lady watched me suffering, choking on my unasked question, and said, "Well, Mr. Loco, that's it for now. Ganbatte ne. Hang in there. And please, don't forget to smile." I gave her a big shit-eating dose of this cursed smile of mine and left her talking with the principal. When I went back into the teacher's office, I spotted Yamada Sensei at her desk, looking haggard. She glanced up at my approach with that same nervous look she always has. I never paid it any undue attention before because many teachers, hell, most people whom I encounter in Japan have that same nervous look around me. I just figured it was a default expression in these parts. But now I could see her nervous look for what it really was. "I think we need to talk," I told her, standing over her with a big plastic smile on my face. "You got a sec?" Part 2, My Fair Loco. When I first started working for the company, I was told they hired teachers for elementary, junior high, and high schools, and I was asked which I preferred. I told them that anything but an elementary school would be okay. I had my fill of preteen kids during my tenure at Neon, so naturally, when I received my first assignment, it was to cover not one, not two, but 5 elementary schools. Only temporarily, they said, until there was an opening at a high school. My commute to these schools was a hell of a daily hike, but I did it for a few months without complaint. I needed the job. Little did I know, these mostly rich, spoiled brats I taught at Neon and Shinjuku were atypical. The kids at these schools in Yokohama were like a breath of fresh air comparatively. They were so much fun that time just flew by, and the setup on this Sunday was my workday would end sometimes as early as noon. When the high school opening came along, I almost turned it down just to keep those lovely hours with the charming kids at the elementary schools. But the convenience of the high school was too good to refuse. It was 2 stations from my house, and that pretty much mitigated any time disparities. I could sleep an extra hour every morning, which meant a great deal with my sleep schedule because I write best at night and often do so until the wee hours. An extra hour was worth its weight in bluefin tuna. And man, was I glad I did. This high school was great, I thought. It wasn't an international school. It was a public school, but there were many exchange students there from all over Asia, and most were English speaking. And there were many English speaking returnees, Japanese who had lived abroad for years, and very high level Japanese English speakers from all over Yokohama. Their abilities were so high that language classes were held completely in English. I assigned and corrected essays written by students from Indonesia, Singapore, Australia, and Japan. I even contemplated starting a writing workshop for those interested in creative writing. The students didn't wear uniforms. They could dress however they liked, as could the teachers. And the icing on this cake was that I was invited to play with the basketball club twice a week, and we'd have actual full-on competitive games. The head of the foreign language department, they actually taught French, German, and Chinese as well at this school, was a woman named Ono Sensei. She was also an English teacher. She was a real sweetheart. She sat beside me, and every day we discovered we had more and more in common, and over time developed a rapport I have seldom experienced in Japan. In particular, we shared a love of cinema, especially films by Woody Allen and the Coen brothers. She could even appreciate Charlie Kaufman. I mean, we really hit it off, I thought. I helped her plan lessons, and together we executed the syllabus she had put together long before I had joined the staff. It was an agenda she created with the previous ALT, some bloke from England I'd never met, as he'd left the country when he left the company. The agenda actually included a trip to England with the students to spend some time in a high school somewhere north of Manchester. I wouldn't be accompanying the class, thank God, because I had joined the staff after the deadline for down payments. But Ono couldn't stop talking about how much she was looking forward to getting back to jolly old England. She'd done a homestay there when she was a young woman some 30 years ago, and the impression had been a lasting one, molding her into the professional she is now. However, despite having been exposed to English as a career for over 30 years, her English was still only at a level where she could communicate and be understood. It wasn't anywhere in the vicinity of fluent and was heavily accented with Japanese. Whenever she'd get to gushing over England, I'd find myself saying to her constantly, "Oh, that's nice. Oh, you went to the Isle of Wight while you were there? Wow, that's nice." Her accent wasn't British, but she swore it was, and I didn't argue. "Oh, I can hear it a little. Wait. Yeah, I can hear it. How nice." Anyway, this went on for a few months. Then, one day, while we were teaching a class and she was using me as a human CD player, there was an incident. One of the students, a Japanese one, a returnee who had lived in England with her parents and had recently returned to Japan, asked me if I could repeat a word because she couldn't quite catch it. "Sure. Which word?" I asked. "Actually, I'm not sure what he was trying to say. There were several words I couldn't catch," she said in Japanese to Ono sensei. In Japanese, Ono sensei responded to the student and included the other students when she said, "Loco sensei's accent is a little strange and not standard. He's American and from New York. So those of you accustomed to the proper English spoken by Oliver sensei will have to endure. So sorry." She said this with smiles and nods to her students and me. I wasn't nodding, but she probably thought I didn't do so because I couldn't understand a word she was saying, as opposed to my catching every other word and not appreciating what I heard at all. At the time, my speaking level of Japanese was very low, and since I never had to use it because everyone seemed to speak English, it wasn't likely to improve while I was working there. So Ono had assumed I didn't understand Japanese at all. "I beg your pardon?" I said in front of the class in English. Ono looked at my face, searching for the smile I usually wore effortlessly, the one that wasn't there anymore. It had been replaced by dismay and a little shock. Maybe even a little of my temper spiked to the surface. Her unprofessionalism was off the charts in my book. "Did you just say my English was not as good as the previous ALTs? Maybe I misunderstood you." I hoped. "Well, it's your accent, Loco Sensei. The students are having trouble with it. I'm so sorry." She was turning a deep shade of red at being busted. I reminded myself that I was not the boss in this room and quickly tried to cease hostilities and return to my role of underling. "I'm the one who should be sorry," I cried. "I'll try to speak more standard English if you like." Then I started choking on these words and sarcastically added, "I've watched a lot of Monty Python and listened to a lot of the Beatles songs in my days." She was still in shock, eyes wide open and mouth breathing at my having comprehended what she said, knowing good and damn well she shouldn't have said anything even approaching it. But I'd let it go as I broke into my rendition of My Fair Loco. The students enjoyed my Eliza Doolittle gutter Cockney accent as well as my Hugh Grant Four Weddings and a Funeral Queen's English impersonation. Both were pretty awful, but so different from my New York inflections, or, to hear Ono tell it, substandard accent, that the kids found it hilarious. I patted myself on the back for skillfully cleaning up the tension I'd caused with humor, I thought. Later in the office, Ono apologized again, this time profusely, and genuflecting contritely, which was the strongest sorry I'd received in all my years in Japan. Of course I accepted it. "I'm sorry I got upset," I said. Oh no, Ono said. It's all my fault. But don't you think more people in the world are exposed to the accents used in America than in England? Through music, film, television, books, or magazines? I don't know, she said. Well, I'm pretty sure that's the case, I said. So if any English is the standard these days, it's probably spoken in America. You don't think so? You're probably right. Not that I'd agree that there is a standard English, trying to change the tone of the conversation from apologetic to more of a conversational tone. There was a time when Queen's English was considered the standard. I think today, however, that's just not realistic. She replied, nodding like she had a change of heart and been shown the error of her thinking. And from that day until the end of the year, our relationship had one added element: mutual respect, I thought. That is until I heard the result of the questionnaire about ALT quality that had been sent to Japanese English teachers to fill out and return to my company. Mine stated that one of the teachers at the school, no names of course, felt that I was not a good fit for their school, that I did not live up to the standard of English excellence the school had built its reputation on, and that person was afraid I would tarnish it somehow, and thus I was not welcome to return there the following semester. I couldn't believe what I was hearing when this information was forwarded to me from the company. They put it to me as gently as possible to spare my ego, and added that sometimes these things happen without the ALT having a clue what was going to go down. That's how it is here sometimes. We'll find you another spot, don't worry. You're still in good standing with us. And that's how I'd come to work at Shogunai, standing before Yamada Sensei, deciding how to put what I wanted to say to her. Part 3. Here's what I wanted to say. Yes, what would you like to talk about, Loco Sensei? Yamada Sensei asked, her smile trembling feebly on her face. Well, I said, keeping upbeat, I really like making lessons. Actually, I love it. Really? She asked a little suspiciously. I didn't know that. You didn't? Haven't you noticed that I make all of Akiyama Sensei's lessons and Okubo Sensei's lessons as well? I did notice, she said, her smile growing just a little brighter, perhaps anticipating where I was going with this conversation. And the students really seem to enjoy them, at least I think they do. Yes, I heard from both of them that the children really like your lessons, she said, rising from her crypt of illness and despair and looking almost as giddy as a schoolgirl herself. Well, here's what I wanted to say. You seem to be very busy quite often. Sometimes I worry that you are working too hard, I said with great gravity, laying it on a little thick, wondering if I should pull back. I mean, I know that you enjoy making your own lessons, but can I please make a few lessons for you? Well, she began, about to no doubt humbly accept. You don't have to decide now, I said, cutting her off like I had been expecting a negative response. Just let me do it for a few weeks, maybe a couple of months, on a probationary basis, you know? And if you don't feel like the students are benefiting or enjoying the change, we can go back to your wonderful lessons. How about it? Will you please give me a chance? She stared at me for a tense second, and I wondered if I'd poured it on too thick. I think that's a great idea, she said. Well, all right, I cried out, trying to restrain the pressing urge I felt to tell her, if you had said or even hinted, even subtly, that you wanted me to make your lessons, we would have been where we are now weeks ago, without the involvement of the Board of Education or the company. But I bit my tongue, as I was sagely advised to do, and smiled. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please pick up my books. Hi, my name is Loco, and I'm a racist, Loco in Yokohama, and my latest book, Words by Baye, Art by Mickey, all available on Amazon or on my website, www.bayemcneil.com. Thank you very much.